Hey, this is Brian again, and I'd like to ask you to do a favor. We can't do this work without people like you, so if you can, please like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends about Bring Back the Porch.
When they actually go through and they take some of the self-reflections, there might be things that they discover about themselves that they maybe didn't necessarily want to look at or didn't want to pursue.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home. The book is called The Hero's Rope. The author is Wesley Paterson, who joins us on the porch today. Welcome. Thanks for coming in, Wes.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian.
How did this come about?
So this book came about, it's been in my head for probably the past 4 to 5 years. And finally, I made a choice to actually commit to writing. And I signed on with a publisher that also had a book accelerator program. So that helped keep me on track and gave me the tools to actually write the book and get what was in my head onto paper, what I was using in short workshop form, down into a full book as you see today.
So it had to be a disciplined approach to this book, and that accelerator program kind of gave you the electric cattle prod every now and then?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The public and working with other authors and inspiring authors that were going through the process and being able to have a coach to help me along.
Okay.
Definitely helped me get it.
Now, there are a plethora of books about management, leadership, etc. Where does this one fit in, and why did you think it was necessary to write it?
So this one is probably the type of book that at some point it's going to piss everybody off. And one of the things that I recommend is the parts that piss you off might be those blind spots, those areas that you maybe haven't taken a look in the mirror. And what I found from working in corporate training and business consulting is there's a lot of management books, principles. Some are good and some are terrible. And so I wanted to create a book that targeted on the rescue behaviors that trip up most managers and leaders and some of those patterns that I've witnessed over the past 10 to 15 years.
How did you come up with the title?
So The Hero's Rope. So the title is actually based on a parable, and it's based on a story of the hero. And there's 2 lands. There's the land of woe and the land of bliss. And so the hero is in the land of woe. All the people have their woes, their woe is me. And in between the 2 lands is a raging river. So it's very dangerous and treacherous to cross. So many that tried perished. And so the hero thought, how can I help others get across the river safely? How can I do that? So what he did was he tied a rope to one end of the river, and then he dove in. So he fought the rapids, he fought that treachery. Mm-hmm. And as he was tying the rope on the other side, some nearby hunters heard him struggling and trying to get it secure, and they suspected him to be but a wounded animal, like a deer.
Okay. And
so they shot and mortally wounded the hero. And just before he perished, he finished securing the rope, and then he drifted off into the rapids. So now the rope's there to cross. Mm-hmm. But just because the rope's there doesn't mean people are taking it. So people are celebrating the hero, his bravery in this, but they kind of forgot the principle of the rope and that they could now cross the river safely.
Yeah, it's like, somebody throws you a rope when you're either hanging from a cliff or something or in the water to pull you out. When I saw that, part of me thought a rope can also be made into a noose. You can hang yourself with it.
Absolutely.
And I think in the book, you kind of talk about how managers might hang themselves by trying to be a hero.
Absolutely. If you're trying to be a hero, rescue, firefighter, save the day, what we often see and find is in businesses, you'll have a all-star performer. And those are usually the ones that get either more work dumped on them or they're elevated to additional positions. And so sometimes you might take, for example, someone who's a top sales performer and you will move him into sales manager. Well, just because he was the top sales performer does not mean he has those same skill sets to be the best or the top manager. We even also see leaders and managers that are very successful in one company, and then they go to another company forgetting what made them successful at the company to start, taking that time to build those relationships, build that trust, when immediately they start pushing efficiency and productivity. And that's where we see a lot of these areas failing and falling short.
To use that salesman's example, that's sort of the pattern, though, is that, you go out, you become successful, you become a good salesperson, you're at the top of your list, and now you're eyeing that top job. But when you get to the top job, there's nobody to train you to do that, or you're just sort of left on your own devices sometimes. And if they still think that they're the top performer and they want to be that hero, that's where the trap door opens.
Absolutely. And we see it all the time. We see people working longer and longer hours, and sometimes just being busier and putting extra time in doesn't mean you're being effective. Whereas if you've seen the commercials back in, I might be dating myself, back in the 80s and 90s, Maytag had a really good commercial, the Maytag repairman, who the machine's never breaking down, so he's very bored. So actually a really good leader, really good manager has the team built up to a level of self-sufficiency that essentially he's, from the outside, looks like he's replaced himself from the job, but he's actually a really strong glue and a really strong goalpost that's leading the charge.
You said that some of the things in the book might tick people off, and I would think that when they look at themselves as being the hero, I'm the best, I have to do everything. Oh, you got a problem, I'm going to run in and fix it for you. That's their mindset. And when they realize that's not the way to manage, I think that's when they're going to get angry if they read your book. Absolutely.
They're gonna get upset, probably in parts. I try to use humor through the book and keep it somewhat light, but when they actually go through and they take some of the self-reflections, there might be things that they discover about themselves that they maybe didn't necessarily want to look at or didn't want to pursue. But those that do, they're gonna see change. And
it's like looking in the mirror and going, I don't know, that's not how I feel, but that's who I am. And you have to, self-reflection sometimes is hard. What makes a good manager in your mind?
So a good manager is someone that takes time to listen to the people's concerns, but doesn't solve the problem for them. They ask specific questions. They dive in to those questions on how that will guide the person on how they can solve the problem themselves. So they might give them certain processes to go through, and there's a number of processes that we include in the book. And a manager can be any type of personality. So one of the things that I go through in the book is in each chapter, I use the true colors example, personality example. So whether you're a gold, a blue, a green, or an orange, or a combination of a few of those colors, if you've done the personality dimensions or the true colors, or even if you've done Myers-Briggs or DISC, you'll have understanding of personalities. You'll see yourself probably as one or two of those where you'll default to, especially in work. And going through that, you can kind of see where I might be doing these things that I think are really good, but it's that blind spot. It's that Johari window. We're not looking at how we're actually being perceived. Same thing as I'm talking in this microphone. I sound different than I usually hear myself, and we all do.
Yep. Yeah, but everybody else, you sound like yourself, so yeah. There's an old expression that I remember that if you think you're indispensable, take a bucket, fill it with water, put your hand in, And when you take your hand out, the hole that's left is how much you'll be missed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that, I guess, is not the right mentality to have as a manager or a leader. Let's pause for a moment so we can share some exciting news. We're proud to announce that our work here at Bring Back the Porch is getting noticed. From October to the end of January, our videos and reels viewed more than 1 million times. Some of those viewers could be your customers, so sponsoring Bring Back the Porch is a great way to get your message in front of them too. If you'd like to support our work here at Bring Back the Porch, we ask you to go to our website at bringbacktheporch.com and follow the links. Thank you for your support.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I go through in the book is to become dispensable.
Dispensable.
So to become so good that you can almost work yourself out of a job. Because if you're doing that, then you're actually working yourself into the next opportunity, skill building. And I think we're going to see that shift in the coming years. Is we don't even know what the jobs of the future are going to look like in the next 5-10 years. So being able to rapidly learn and unlearn and let go of some of that excess baggage we're possibly carrying around that worked in the past, but maybe isn't going to work the same in the future.
That culture is something I wanted to talk about, because if you're training people, there's always that fear that someone's going to be better than you and they're going to replace you. So maybe that's why you don't train them as well, or you don't give them the full meal deal. You just give them enough so that they can function in their position.
There is a lot of that, and there's a lot of office politics and things that we see happening in corporate America and corporate society. There's a lot of digging the heels in middle management positions and taking control, not giving the people the full aspect so that they have to come to you.
You have to be the ultimate resource.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you've got something in the book. There's like 20 different behaviors that you, I think, point out as being detrimental to being a good leader, a good manager. We can't go through them all, but maybe touch on a couple of them.
Okay, so I'll give a couple that I'm guilty of at times. So
Mea culpa.
So one is word completer. Is sometimes when I see people struggling to come up with a word or phrase the thought, I may
fill in the blanks,
assuming I know
the answer,
what is best for that other person.
Yeah.
And so that's one. But what we're failing to do is give them the time to actually cultivate that thought. And when we look at neuroscience, it can take 8 to 10 seconds to coordinate that thought. And if we can teach people skill sets, what we found when we've done corporate training with large organizations, now we multiply the number of eyes that are on maybe the factory floor, they're in the office environment, they're seeing what's happening day to day. And those are going to be the people that we want to empower to solve those problems rather than kick it up the line to the next supervisor, to the next.
Yeah. Time bandit is another one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stealing time and stealing your own time. So I know many type A personality. Again, that's one that often I'm guilty of, is putting in that time. And one of the things with balance is determining those set times where we're going to work to this period, and then we're going to allow ourselves to be unavailable. So for example, as I was working with a number of companies, projects in March was very busy because March is government year end, and I'm working with some government contracts. And then we finished that work. We took a family trip to Greece, and because we have 3 kids, we're a blended family that are graduating this year. And it was a great time to just unwind, relax. When we got back, we knew there was about a week before the book was launching, and that really gave a good time to reset. And I find when you travel, when you're meeting people with different culture, different backgrounds, that also gives that creative time with that right and left brain to start sinking new ideas when you come back into that space.
But there are those who would feel guilty for taking that vacation.
Absolutely. There'd be those that are attached to the hip, checking their cell phone, checking the email, even though they've set their automatic notification that I'm gone for the week. And that's the fear. And really, when you're looking at it, what are you assuming when you do that? You're assuming that your people can't handle things on their own. You're assuming these adults, these people under my guidance, are incapable of solving their own problems. And so when those type A managers take a look at that, that's probably going to be one of the biggest ahas. One of the challenges is they see the time as efficiency. So they're getting frustrated because their people aren't working fast enough or producing, or I could produce that faster. But when you jump in and do that for another person, you're not allowing them to build their skill sets. Whereas we took that extra time, we let them perhaps skin their knees, fall down. We all had to learn to walk. We didn't rush it. For our kids. Taking these same principles into the organization is really where the book dives into on that chapter.
And you talk about that, and that was one of the thoughts that came to me too, is that this could also be used as a parenting book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny. We spoke a little bit earlier off camera about my wife, and one of the best feedback that I got for the book was as she started reading, because as I was working on it, I was sharing bits and pieces, but as she started diving into it, she said, "This is actually good. I can use this." So I tell you, if you're married, that's a pretty big compliment. So, but she said, "Yeah, I can use this with parenting. I can use this with my private practice clients." So she's starting to see those areas to adopt it as well.
What has been the reception to the book so far?
So far, I would say 90% has been very positive for the book. There's been a couple people, "I wish you would have done this," or "I think could have done that." And that's good. That's good feedback. So I'm getting, it's not all, I would say 100% positive, but I'd say in the most part, there's been a lot of positive reception. There's also been a number of people that have come up to me that also want to write a book. And how did you write a book? Or how can any advice for me to write a book? And one of the unique opportunities that I had this past summer is I had a Zoom call with one of my mentors who's wrote about 60 books on management and consulting. And I was picking his brain on how he went about the writing process. And he said, just write a little bit every day. If it's 10 minutes, if it's 15, if it's an hour. What I found, the first chapter was the hardest chapter.
Really?
And once I had the frame for the first chapter, I already knew the 20 questions. So I had that. But once I finally got that, so I would say it was about 85 to 90% good, I just replicated that for the remaining chapters. And then I found sometimes, because during the workday, you're having a number of distractions. There was a couple nights where 10 o'clock, I'd be up till 3, 4. My wife would come down, "You're still up?"
Yeah, I got an idea. I got to go. Yeah.
But it was just a time. No one was around. There's no distractions. And I was just allowing it to flow. So I found a lot of my chunks of very effective writing happened late at night.
Have you been surprised by some of the people who have reached out with comments on your book?
Yes. It's interesting. I've had actually a lot of authors that have reached out to me. One author, he's had several New York best-selling author selling books, and he writes fiction, spy novels. And I thought, well, this is interesting. And another author, she's wrote a lot of books on finance, and I've read a couple of her books. My wife's read her book, Susie Orman. So I've connected with Susie. I've also had a lot of people in the management consulting field that have sent messages and personal reach outs. So it has been quite humbling and exciting starting to connect. I'm starting to see, there's this whole author community that is starting to embrace me, and that's a great thing.
Will there be another book?
Absolutely.
Aha, you're already starting to think about number 2.
Absolutely. I haven't started writing it. My next big project is to create an Audible. And one of the things that I like about Audible is when the author actually reads the book. So I didn't want to, people were reaching out to me to see if I wanted them to read the book, but I would rather read it myself, maybe ad lib a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not use AI.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How's the sales been?
So the sales have been really good. We hit #1 bestseller in organizational change in our launch weekend. So we did really good that first weekend push launch. Now we're planning some events coming up in the next little bit. We're going to do a book signing event at the Chamber of Commerce, May 5th, and we're going to do another book signing event at a local yoga studio, Yoga Revolution, on Saturday. And so we're starting to, I would say the seeds are starting to spread.
The roots are spreading.
The roots are spreading. And we've also had a few organizations that now have reached out to ask if we can do some workshops, some team building. And I had one business ordered 28 copies. That's a local Southern Alberta. They have a couple companies, and so we're going to meet and discuss some areas that we can work in the business. Because ultimately, a book is great, but sometimes, like you said, Brian, some people are, this is really thick.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they become intimidated by it. But if you look at it, you used a font that is very easy to read, a lot of bold headlines so that you can, zero in on something. And I'm looking forward to reading it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the book as you dive in. One of the tools that I also wrote near the beginning of the book is I wrote a section on how to use this book. So the book's written in a unique way where you don't necessarily have to read the book linear front to back. You can look at the rescue patterns, and those that are somewhat intuitive or aware of themselves might think, oh, these are probably ones that I find more challenging, or maybe I have certain staff or employees that this is a challenge for me at this point. And so you might want to jump around. I also give instructions on how you could use it as a team effort if you're doing like a group read and assigning different chapters to different employees, and then using that as a meeting where you could discuss those and allow your employees to come up with different things to improve the process.
Involve them in the process, yeah. How do I get a copy?
So the book's available on Amazon. So Canada, US, UK, it's available in paperback and Kindle. There's also a bit of a promotion this week, a Kindle countdown. So you can actually get a little bit of a bonus during this week if you order the ebook. And for bookstores, for libraries, they can order the book wholesale through Ingram Spark. So they can get a discount. So your Kohl's, Barnes & Noble, all of those bookstores and libraries, they can get the book for wholesale.
Someone once said to me that readers are leaders, and I think this book will fill that bill. Wesley Paterson, thank you for the visit.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
Hey, this is Brian again, and I'd like to ask you to do a favor. We can't do this work without people like you, so if you can, please like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends about Bring Back the Porch.